please make welcome Mr. Chet Atkins.
Here's McGrady.
In 2023, Rolling Stone magazine named Chet Atkins the 39th greatest guitarist of all time. 14 Grammy Awards, Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, 9 Country Music Association Awards, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Country Music Hall of Fame, and the Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum. On the industry side of things, of course, Chet played an equally big role as a record producer for RCA. He was part owner of Studio A, he worked out of Studio B, and was one of the innovators of the Nashville Sound. Now, Chet's own music did not just start with his first full-length guitar album, of course. He was releasing singles possibly as early as 1946 and released several singles on RCA up until that debut album arrived. There's this 2009 compilation on CD by Primo. It's called The Best of Young Chet. Today we'll cover 1953 up to 1966. Look at all these albums. Wow. These are just the albums we're going to cover today. All these first 30 or more albums came out on RCA, RCA Victor, and or RCA Camden. And every album we talk about here today was an actual album release. I will not be including compilations in these videos. It's a lot of music already, and I think you'll enjoy this because who really has the time in 2025 to listen to 120 Chet Atkins albums? Which are the essential albums to check out, remember, and possibly own in your collection? Here we go. Number 1, starting with Gallopin guitar. This is the debut Chet album, of course. Came out on a 10-inch record, as well as a pair of 45s. Those are the only 2 releases of this. Of course, it's collectible because it's really old and not that many copies of it still around. The most primitive sounding as well. The least refined version of Chet Atkins you'll hear. It's kind of a small combo sound. In the same year, still 1953, Stringing Along with Chet Atkins. This is the first album that has some sizable distribution to it. There were 18 releases in total, US, Canada, Europe. They're all vinyl releases. It was reissued into the 1960s. Very classic album cover. A significant improvement sonically from the debut, but again, it still has that early Chet sound to it. Got the YouTube Music checkmark. And if the album artwork on the site is not the same as the original artwork, then I'll include it here in the images, like with this one here. This is 1955. This is the 3rd album, and it's called A Session with Chet Atkins. That it is. It's an ensemble-sounding record. Solos by the steel guitar, the fiddle. Bud Isaacs, interestingly enough, is playing the steel here. Really cool record. Is this somebody's favorite album, I wonder? Could be. Chet Atkins in 3 Dimensions, 1956, Jerry Bird on steel. Well, this is the first and last time I think that Jerry Bird's going to be soloing on a Chet Atkins album. There were 12 releases of this one. This one features Tenderly, which is a big arrangement for Chet. It's going to stay with him his whole career. And you can see the alternate album artwork that they're using on YouTube Music. There's still some copies of this around. Starting to sound like modern Chet here, and he's branching outside of the country a bit, doing the multi-genre thing. It's Chet Atkins in 3D. 1957. Okay, Fingerstyle guitar. I think this is the biggest of the early albums for Chet. Small combo kind of feel to it, real minimalist production compared to what we're going to get into in this discography, of course. It features Swedish Rhapsody. There were 20 releases of this. This is an album I like quite a bit. Love the artwork for it. Maybe the best of Chet's early records, perhaps. Hi-Fi and Focus. This is a cool record. I know I'm not alone on this. It's a very nice album. A slightly edgier sound. The last reissue was in 2017. So people do like this record. I think it was, Modern Harmonic that did a release of it on vinyl using the original analog masters in 2017. It features Walk Don't Run, another big Chet arrangement. How about that album artwork? Pretty iconic. And this is somebody's favorite album for sure. 1958, this is a solid album. Yeah, Chet Atkins at home. There's no evidence of this being a home studio recording. It sounds like the others. Nice album artwork again. It features Yankee Doodle Dixie. Is that the one where he plays two songs at the same time? I can't remember. I actually have notes for all of these albums that I've written out. There's no way you could sit through me reading through all the notes I have and all this stuff. There's so much here. Mildly redundant at this point. We're, what, 6, 7 albums in here? If you're listening to them in order, one by one, that's probably how you'll feel until you get to this record. Only ever 2 pressings of this, and it's quite a fascinating story on this record. It's very rare. Well, the original pressing is very rare because it was canceled. The project was canceled after just a few copies had been printed. I wonder how many, maybe 1,000, 2,000, maybe 500 copies. But there are pictures of the original. It does exist. Anyway, the big news on this record is that it was reissued in 2015. The family cleared it so that this could come out, and it's Chet Atkins, My Brother Sings. And what would you think without hearing this record? Does that seem like a record that would interest anyone? Not really. Who wants to listen to Chet's brother sing, right? Well, to start with, he's only singing on 3 or 4 songs, but it's not at all what you'd expect. He has the most wonderful voice, amazing voice. It's like you're hearing this singer you've never heard before. It's very surreal. Now, he did sing with the Les Paul Trio, as I understand, and there's a rumor that the reason this album was canceled was because Jim Atkins was not in the union, or he was not a CSAC member, one of the two. It was one of the very first albums recorded in Studio B. In fact, I read somewhere it may have been a test project for Studio B. You're going to notice a huge difference. It's like we're going from black and white to Technicolor. A must-have record. Okay, Chet Atkins in Hollywood. Well, this is going to be the biggest album for Chet so far in his story. And 1959 was a big old year for Chet Atkins. He had 4 albums released, all in this one year. Is that too many, you might ask? This album is most memorable for the reissued artwork that came out a few years later. This is kind of a legendary album cover. In fact, it was even featured in this book that I usually have in the background here. It's called Vinyl Hayride. It's a coffee table book featuring great country western album covers, all about the artwork, and this reissue is featured in that book. I'll put a link to the book in the description as well. This is the first album that Chet recorded in Hollywood. Actually, the first non-Nashville recording, you could also say. Chet was not totally satisfied with the mix, so he remixed it, and he recorded new guitar parts. So some of the later reissues are Chet's own version of the album, which is superior to the original, I would say. But they're both great, so either one is fine. 34 total releases, maybe the most on any Chet record. It was reissued by Speaker's Corner, 180 gram in 2016. Richard S. Janelle of the LA Times accurately sums this one up pretty well. For some, this record might fall under the category of guilty pleasures, but a pleasure it is. One of the great makeout records of its time. Chet Atkins in Hollywood. It's the first of many easy listening style Chet Atkins guitar records. Hum and Strum. This is inspired by like the Mitch Miller sing-along style album, as it says. They had the lyrics insert with this as well as chord charts, and the idea is you're going to sit and listen to this record and sing along and learn how to play the songs. The whole thing's a little bit awkward sounding in 2025. But I did listen to it again for the making of this episode. Somebody's favorite Chet Atkins record. I just don't know who. Maybe yours. Okay, album number 3 of 59, Mr. Guitar. An incredible piece of work. Bill Porter engineering. One of Chet's best performances, I wrote here. Yeah, some people would agree with that. The album artwork is kind of nice, too. There were different variations of it. This was done on Speaker's Corner in 2005 on a 180 gram reissue. One of Chet's best performances, what do you think? Mr. Guitar. Living Stereo. And then we're into 1960 with the first rock pop album, Teensville, pretty iconic album cover as well. 30 releases of this in total, CD, record, and reel-to-reel. Wax Time did a reissue in 2017. This record has its own fan base. All right, the other Chet, it's probably going to be in the top 20 albums of his entire discography, I would guess. First album done on nylon string. It's the flamenco style. He's doing songs here that are all sort of Spanish flavored. An incredible living stereo recording. People who are not country music fans will have this album in their collection. It's really outstanding. Great album artwork, of course. I'm sure a lot of you have heard this record and enjoy it. Okay, here we have one of the very first recording that's not on RCA. This was a promotional album, so it's very rare. It's a CSAC repertory recording, Studio B. A-Team. It's actually a small combo with the Anita Kerr singers. It's a perfect balance. It's a killer country jazz recording. Being that it was just a promotional copy, it's maybe the rarest Chet album. Unlike My Brother Sings, Brother Jim there, that one we looked at, this album was not reissued. I've actually put together a playlist of these songs on YouTube. I'll link to it. Actually, I'll put a card up here so you can find it immediately. And this is definitely a top 10 all-time Chet record for me. Well, I'll play a little bit of it so you can hear it for yourself.
Oh, I must be losing my heart.
Looking at sold once on Discogs. In the history of this site, it sold once for $160 US, which goes to show you that country records do not command big dollars. They're not collectible. I have a whole video about that on my channel, which you can watch if you're interested. So this is called The Best Chet Yet. I'd say it's a must-have, but it's hard to have something you can't find. Now we're 1961, and this is one that everyone's going to be familiar with, I think, the Chet Atkins Workshop album. I mean, Chet put out so many records. Can you imagine putting 3 or 4 records out a year? It's a staggering amount of music. And with Chet, he was not just a great guitar player, he was like a tastemaker. I mean, his records are all pretty great. They're all pretty good. Chet went into the studio and laid down some rough tracks of the guitar with the group, and then he went back to his home workshop, you can see here, and re-recorded the guitar parts. So this is the guitarist, producer, musical genius at work here on the Chet Atkins Workshop on Living Stereo, with Bill Porter engineering. And the significance of that is Chet and Bill Porter had this very intensely close working relationship. They did some incredible work together. And after they stopped working together, Chet's music, it was affected. It never had that same kind of magic to it, you could say. This is also the last album that we have that Chet is going to really have a nice, tasteful country sound. From here on out, things are going to get very poppy, very lush, a lot of strings, a lot of Nashville Sound, a lot of easy listening records. It's certainly not my favorite style of music, but it was very popular in the 60s and 70s. Okay, we're going to pick up the pace here a little bit. We're going to lose everyone if we continue at this same pace. 1961, 4 more albums. Chet's first Christmas record is here, Christmas with Chet Atkins. This popular guitar record, I actually have a copy of. I have a copy of that one here. I didn't think much of it when I first listened to it, but Played it again yesterday, and lo and behold, also a great album. Lush Nashville Sound style, but actually still a great record. Hard to find anything wrong with some of these albums. This one down here, Guitar Magic, you'll see it has the same album artwork we saw with Mr. Guitar. This was a Japanese pressing that was sort of a compilation of a few of these records. Nothing that we haven't heard already on these other albums. So that'd be for collectors and completists, mostly. 1962, 4 more records. Caribbean Guitar, also a great record. Kind of creating the blueprint here that they're going to use with Floyd Kramer. I don't know, were the Ventures on RCA? Who had more, Chet Atkins or the Ventures? Probably not Chet. This second record here is called In Africa, spelled with a K. It's a very interesting album, actually, because it's Jim Reeves is singing in a language that is not English. It's maybe Indonesian, maybe an South African language. I'm not really sure. Is he of South African descent? I don't remember. Floyd Kramer, Chet Atkins, and Jim Reeves in Africa. It's not a live album, mind you. It's actually a studio recording. It is an interesting record, too. Also rare, because it was just released in Germany and South Africa, I'm pretty sure. So that would be a nice one for the collectors to have. And then we have Down Home, Chet Atkins, maybe recorded in the same session, possibly Back Home Hymns. It's the first gospel album. All the old faithfuls are on here. Old Rugged Cross, In the Garden, just all the great. And it's kind of a minimal sounding record, as it should be too. It's really good. I just listened to it this morning, in fact. Kind of put me to sleep though. All right, 1963. It's hard to know where one album ends and another begins at this point. It says here the first rock and roll album. Not correct. Second rock and roll album, right? Because we saw Teensville just a while ago. And it's the most significant album here, Teen Scene, because it received a Grammy nomination. And it's a record that ended up in many, many households, I can assure you. Very big record. It's a good record, too. I just listened to it a couple days ago. Cashing in on the rock and roll craze, of course. You know, you see with RCA here, it's like capitalism at its finest. They're just going to milk this for every novelty and concept that they can come up with. 64, we have another South African album with Jim Reeves. This one's called Tour Hits. Another rare South African pressing. Guitar country, progressive pickin'. We have the first duet album. This is with Hank Snow. Few different pressings of this. There was a Japanese pressing as well I saw this week that's available in Bangkok, but not that great of a record. What do you think? I think there's too much going on in the mix. It's a lot of strings and chaos. They will do another project together in the future. This is not going to be the last. But that's what 1964 looks like if you're Chet Atkins. 1965, we're almost to the end of this now. 2 records, so kind of an off year for Chet. My notes have not been updated, but I can tell you that my favorite guitars here, this is another one I have a copy of here, and that's actually a pretty great record. I think some of you probably have it. More of that guitar country. I think that's a perfect place to end for today. We've reached the point in the franchise where we're doing sequels of earlier installments. A good place to call it for episode 1. All right, so to recap, you probably don't have time to listen to all these. Who does? But most importantly, what we have to do is pare this down to the most essential recordings of the early years. So I've got a bit of homework for you after all that. Out of these 10 highlights, which are the 5 essential early Chet albums? Any 5 of these, only 5, and drop them in the comments. If you see any of these albums in your travels, which you will because there's tons of Chet records around, you might remember this video and come back to it as needed. All the albums are available either on YouTube or YouTube Music. Mr. Sandman did not appear on any of the records we looked at here. It was released as a single in '54. We'll pick things up in 1966 in the next episode. Let me know what you think of Chet Atkins and his pace for recording new music. Take care, and we'll see you again real soon.